Hello and welcome to irishracing.com for another episode of our Formscan show sponsored by William Hill. We had a great start to the series last week with Gavin Lynch tipping up plenty of winners. And I'm delighted to be joined this week by Stephen Harris from Betting Expert to review this weekend's action. Stephen, how are you keeping?
Yeah, fine, thanks, Emma. It's a bit wet. That's the only thing. I know we're always moaning about the weather, but having sort of last season, it started off on firm ground till about December. But this year, I think the ground is absolutely atrocious, really, everywhere. Sandown, which race at the weekend, which is round the corner from me, I think they're going to get much more testing conditions by the time we get to Sunday afternoon because it's pouring with rain here and it has been all morning so far. So just something to look out for. And obviously, we've got Aintree this weekend, and they've survived an inspection this morning, which is good news.
Yeah, I was in Clonmel yesterday and it was really, really tough going. A lot of horses finishing very tired. So I think especially Gowran at the weekend will be very, very tough. But
Mm.
I suppose just before we kind of get started, it's kind of good to get a bit of a background on all of our weekly guests. So you're from Betting Expert brand at the moment, obviously, but you're a former bookmaker as well. So maybe just for people who don't know you too well, give us a little bit of background to yourself.
Yeah, well, I was a bookmaker. I became a bookmaker on course at university, basically. My last year at university, I went to Reading University basically because it was near the dog track, which is not probably the best example of higher education. And then I bet at Reading Dogs for about 16, 17 years, 3 nights a week. And I bet at Oxford for about 2 years before that closed. It's now reopened. But yes, I've had like nearly 20 years of on-course bookmaking, and I worked for other bookmakers off course as well, Sporting Index being the main one for quite a long time doing their racing. So yeah, I've always been involved in the bookmaking and punting sort of side, both sides of it. I'm much more a punter now, and I do the selections and the write-ups and the blogging for Betting Expert every day, which you can find online on the Betting Expert site, and on YouTube we do daily videos and stuff. So yeah, I'm sort of pretty much horse racing 24/7 basically these days.
It's tough life being an on-course bookmaker. Do you miss it?
Well, it used to be good. I mean, every when I first started, which I think I was 21 or 22, maybe, which is a flipping long time. Hard to believe, flipping long time ago. I know, but yeah, it used to be good. I mean, there was a lot of cash flying around. Everything took place at the track. You could bet your own opinion. If you wanted to stand a favourite, you could stand it for whatever you could afford to lose, really, because there was money around. Whereas as my sort of career on course came to an end, which was sort of over 10 years ago now, it had begun to go. We'd had a couple of recessions. People didn't have cash anymore. And I think now, I think on course bookmakers now are hanging on by their fingernails, to be honest. It's pretty desperate midweek. There's nobody there. I mean, you get decent crowds on the Saturdays and at festivals and stuff. And I'm sure maybe you'll tell me more about Ireland. I know Ireland is a much more of a racing country and a betting country in many ways, whereas I live in the south of England. And if you go to Sandown midweek, I mean, there's more life in a tramp's vest. I mean, literally, it's completely deserted. And it's blinding racing, and it's a fantastic place to go racing, but there's nobody there, and there never is. And Kempton is 10 times worse. I mean, Kempton get a massive crowd on Boxing Day, and nobody goes there for the rest of the year. It's extraordinary, really. But yeah, I feel like I'm well out of it. I miss the banter and the wind ups with punters, but I must admit, financially, I've sort of my hair's stopped going grey in recent years because I'm well out of it, I think.
Bit of a less stressful life. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
even in Clonmel yesterday, I mean, I suppose the weather didn't help. Like there was a good crowd there, but like the betting ring was, I don't know how many bookmakers were there, but
Yeah,
there was
too
probably
many, probably. Well, this is the amazing thing. I mean, these people talk about punters being addicted. I promise you, on-course bookmakers are addicted to going. They are terrified that somebody else is going to get the money if they don't turn up. And I should think that some of these tracks midweek, if you had 3 bookmakers there, it'd be too many. And they still get like 25 people of them go. Bookmakers have always been obsessed about what other people are doing and who's getting what. And they think these days that somebody else is getting it in a better pitch, and it's just not true because nobody can take a sixpence. I mean, I don't know whether you ever spoken to AK Betts, who's a real good go-ahead bookmaker. He did buy a lot of pitches on course in Ireland, and he's starting to offload them now by the look of things. So I think it's very, very hard, unless you've got punters who regularly bet with you. It's a very hard way to try and eke out a living these days.
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't, I suppose it wasn't much of a betting day in Clonmel yesterday. A few favourites getting in, I suppose, for Willie, Allaho and Allegory Devassi. What did you make of that performance from Allaho? Like, first one back after a long time. Won it easy, I suppose, but it wasn't much of a race, really.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to, because I'm sort of a punter, I am quite cynical, and I'd say 90% of the time I take a negative view about things. I didn't think, I mean, he's obviously, everything's still in one piece. He's a brilliant jumper. He's got a high cruising speed. I'm not sure it was the ideal return, because I think he ended up having quite a hard race. I don't think he was hanging on to much up the straight, was he? I mean, you were there, you probably get a better sense of it. I did read they said he was blowing very hard afterwards and he probably needed the run, but I don't know. I'm not sure, sort of, after all that time off on heavy ground, having a really hard race was the ideal comeback. But having said that, we were talking off air, weren't we? When he won the race at Cheltenham, that he wins every single year until he went missing for a couple of years, the ground was always quite tight, relatively speaking. It wasn't bottomless or heavy. On one of the occasions, it was almost good ground, and he just flew over it, didn't he? He was sort of like Mr. Frisk winning the 1984 Grand National. More, they never saw which way he went, and I think he probably wants better ground, but at least he's back. And it is, I mean, I don't know about you, that the reason I love the jumps and much prefer it to the flat is these horses do come back year after year, generally speaking, and you get to know them and you form opinions on them, whether you're right or wrong, that's another matter. But with the flat, it's much more fleeting, and you don't get a chance to form those sort of views.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was excited to see him back. It was probably one of the, well, we had a runner in the first, but it was kind of the main reason I wanted to go. And I think I spoke to a lot of people there, and he was the reason they went racing as well. Look,
Yeah,
I suppose you can't really draw too many conclusions from the race. It was just a schooling session, really. I was kind of surprised how quick. I suppose you're kind of watching him going, and it doesn't look like he's going that fast. But then you see the horses in behind him, and they're absolutely flat out. He's just such a big horse. He covers so much ground. You probably might be worried a small bit next time out. Would he bounce a bit? It was
yeah.
like a tough race after such a long layoff. But 5-1 now for the King George anti-post. I don't think I'd be rushing to back it. Any interest for you?
No, I think it's far too short. I mean, I don't fancy Brave Man's Game. I know everybody fancies that. I mean, that got beat the other day at Chepstow. The only other runner in the race, Ahoy Senor, was beat after a mile. Brave Man's Game got an absolute solo, and I thought, I mean, he may well have won by a neck, or he ended up losing by a bit more because of the mistake at the last. But I don't think. I mean, Nichols sort of saying, "Oh, he's 80% fit afterwards." I promise you, he would have been ready for that race. It's all after timing nonsense. Nichols trains these horses with targets. So I'm not saying he won't win the King George, but he's a diabolical price. So I think probably have to look elsewhere when the race comes around.
Right, so we'll dive into a few more Gold Cup horses, so who will be showing up at Down Royal this weekend. I suppose we'll go for the big one first, the Ladbrokes Champion Chase over 3 miles. Jerry Colombe, very, very short favourite for this, 8-11 now at the moment with William Hill. Would you be convinced by him?
Well, I do like him. I mean, we were talking off air, weren't we? How did he get beat at Cheltenham? That was one of those Cheltenham results where you just look at it afterwards. You think, how on earth has he not won the race? I mean, he had them stone cold the whole way round and somehow didn't get it done up the hill. But he made amends at Aintree. I mean, I think he does look top class. And Gordon Elliott, we talk about trainer form at this time of year. It's absolutely massive, isn't it? Gordon Elliott's had 12 winners from his last 43 runners in the last 14 days at the time of recording. They're suddenly absolutely flying. And I think Jerry Colombe's got a lot less convictions than his rivals here, who are pretty exposed and are all capable of putting in a stinker of a run as well. So I would imagine Jerry Colombe will travel all over them, and if he's fit enough, he'll get it done.
Yeah, look, I think he's definitely the best horse in the race at the moment. Anyway, look, he's about 6-1 for the Gold Cup. It's probably short enough for me now to be back in that anti-post. Like, just Cheltenham
Yeah,
last year, just but I was a big fan of him coming into it, but I just have a few small doubts about him after it. And Roy Allen, like, he's won, I think he's 4 from 4 at this meeting. He's never been beaten in Down Royal. He was disappointing though last time in Gowran behind Easy Game in the PWC Champion Chase, but he has the fitness edge over Jerry. I think if anyone's going to give him a bit of a race, it probably will be him.
yeah.
Conflated ran no kind of race in Punchestown last time, but behind Manila Indo. Manila Indo was good that day, but look, he probably is what he is now. He's getting on in age, and I don't think he should be beating Jerry Colombe here, but probably no bet
Mm.
for me in this one. I think he's just too short to be backing him really, and it's kind of what will be a very tactical affair. And
Definitely, yeah. I was going to say these small field Irish graded races at the start of the season. The market in the last 3 minutes is extremely revealing, and we'll know a lot more than you or I discussing it now. and B, tactics are just massive, and the market will tend to know what's going to lead, what's going to sit second, and what's going to sit third. I was going to ask you something that I've been told, or somebody who might know has said to me that Henry de Bromhead, who's flying at the minute, he's had 7 winners in the last 14 days, is about to part company with Rachel Blackmore. I don't know whether you've heard anything like that. I know these are sort of racecourse rumours. It might turn out to be nonsense, but whether you'd heard anything like that was actually possible.
I hadn't heard anything now, to be
Right.
honest. Would be a little bit surprised if it did happen, but look, stranger things have happened in racing, I suppose. I know Darragh O'Keefe is the second jockey who's absolutely flying as well.
Yeah.
Don't know if there's
May-
been any falling out there, but
Maybe it's related to how well he's riding rather than anything else, and they're thinking. I think she has fell off a couple of them, hasn't she, lately? I mean, I think she's top class and absolutely brilliant. To be honest, I'd be slightly surprised. I mean, the one thing about this race is Jerry Colom is 7, Manila Endo's 10, Envoy Allen's 9. Conflated ran abysmally the other day and is 9. You sort of think it could be the sort of race. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Jerry Colom ended up sort of 9-4 on and won very, very easily. And he was absolute nap, and they know he's top class, and he's going to go for the Gold Cup and all the rest. I suppose the thing with Joe Colom, he's got very few convictions, hasn't he? He's not done anything wrong. He's upwardly mobile and progressive. That Cheltenham defeat by an inch, I suppose if he'd won by an inch, you'd be saying, well, he could be the next sort of superstar. I mean, he won at Aintree like he was absolutely top class. He did look the real deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won really impressively, to be honest.
yeah, I think he has to win this as well to have any, like, to
Mm,
be really considering him as a Gold Cup horse. If he gets beat here, like
definitely.
he'd struggle in a Gold Cup, I think, because
Yeah.
I don't think any of these will be involved in the big day. So look,
No.
we'll go back now to the 145, I suppose, the handicap hurdle there. Not sure if you have any opinion on this one.
Well, I thought Foxy Girl was the most interesting runner. Again, I'm not sure I want to back her, but we haven't seen her out since she finished 8th at Cheltenham in Henry de Rome's late son's race, didn't he? But 8th behind You Wear It Well, and that form is very, very good. And I don't think she was seen to best effect there. I mean, she's going into handicaps now, although it is a listed race, but you sort of think she could have got a much higher mark than 123. And she's certainly got potential. She'll love the ground. As we said, Henry is flying. He's had 7 winners in the last 14 days. She's a very interesting horse to see in the market. Again, she could be 11-4 favourite, stable nap, primed. She might have had issues. She's had 8 months off or so, hasn't she? She's been off for 240 days. It'd be interesting to see what the market made of it. Which one did you like? You're much more on the Irish form than I am.
Yeah, look, it was kind of an interesting race, I suppose. I was kind of surprised to see Jack Kennedy riding the Model Kingdom for Noel Mead when Gordon has a few in the race. Look, maybe it's just a case that Gordon wants to claim, or maybe Jack insisted on riding this one. I'm not too sure. Look, she'll be fit coming into this anyway. The Noel Mead mare, 6-year-old. Look, she ran in the flat in early October in Thurles. She was beating odds on there. She's just a mare that I can't really trust, to be honest. I was with you with Foxy Girl. Look, she's very, very unexposed. Only 3 runs to date. She won a maiden hurdle in Limerick last Christmas, and it actually worked out to be quite a good maiden hurdle in the end. She beat In Excess from the Mullins Yard, who went on to hack up in another what looks like a good maiden hurdle in Fairy House. So that form looks very strong. Her Cheltenham one, I think I can kind of forgive her for it. Like, it
Yeah,
was probably a big ask being so kind of unexposed going into it. She's quite a keen going mare as well. She gave herself a hard time that day, but she ran with a lot of promise, I thought, just fading late on, probably result of her pulling so hard. Hood first time here. She probably should be a bit more mature, you'd think, coming into this one than she was
mm,
in Cheltenham. So yeah, I'll stick with her, I think. So we're both together on that one, which is
right.
hopefully a good sign anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, but look, we'll move on now to, I think, the last race we'll discuss in Downroyal. Very, very tricky affair. Grade 2 steeplechase over 2 mile 3. Only 3 runners: Fernilly, Visionarian, and the Galway Plate winner Ash Tree Meadow. Do you fancy anything here?
Well, I mean, it's Emmett Mullins has got the second in. I think it's owned by JP McManus. I mean, I'm not sure I'm rushing to put my bookmaker's hat on in the race, to put it politely. I mean, Ashtree Meadows been off for 101 days, but I wouldn't have thought that would be any issue. Got a good record fresh, probably going to lead on his own. Jack Kennedy's book, Gordon Elliott's flying. The other 2 stables, Emmett Mullins, he's 0 from 1 in the last 14 days. He's barely had a runner. And Peter Farr, he is 0 from 12. So the favourite could be a certainty, and the market will definitely be very accurate here. I'd have thought if the favourite ends up sort of an odds-on chance and is 4 lengths clear, jumping well on his own, he's going to be sort of 1 to 2 on the exchanges immediately, and almost have to fall to get beat. But I didn't have a strong opinion form-wise, but I suspect the Elliott horse might be a certainty.
Yeah, he was very good winning the Galway plate, I suppose. But you kind of wonder, was he maybe flattered a bit by a very good ride that day? Danny Gilligan went out in front and made every post the winning post. Visionarian was behind him that day. I think he was fifth in the plate. Look, he seems to be a specialist at finding these small field races. I think he's after Saturday's race, he'll only have faced 9 rivals in 3 runs. Won a farce of a race in Listowel last time, only 2 runners. I think Saint Sam came down at the last and he won then.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be backing anything in this, to be honest. It's going to be very, very tactical. If Ashley Meadow gets his way in front, probably is the most likely winner.
Yeah.
Fairnelly, I don't think I can trust.
This must be history in the making, Emma, isn't it? That there's a 3-runner race in Ireland on a Saturday and Willie Mullins hasn't got a runner. I mean, that cannot have ever happened before. I mean, usually I'm sort of moaning about these sort of small field races and Willie's got 2 out the 4 runners. He must have slept in and to miss the depths this morning, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is with Willie. He doesn't really love this down oil meeting maybe as much as
Right.
Gordon Elliott does. Gordon seems to target up nearly all of his better horses here. Willie doesn't really he very rarely sends one of his top horses here now, maybe the odd time. But yeah, it's interesting. Paul is heading to Gowran instead of going to the big meeting here, which is probably says enough. Willie doesn't have a whole pile up there. But just one last horse I'm going to give a quick mention to in down wide is in the 3:28 handicap chase over 3 miles. Solomon Lane is a horse I really like. I fancied him last time he ran in Punchestown. He's running for Martin Hassett, and I think they're operating at a 27% strike rate with their national hunt horses this year. It's a small yard, but if they can target one, they normally get it right. He ran a lovely race in Punchestown, probably just blowing up at the last. Probably will be a good each way price here again. So if he's double figures, I'll definitely be backing him each way. Right, so we'll move on now. Look, Gowran, I was just going to give it a small mention, I suppose. Brandy Love making chase debut. What do you think of her? She probably wasn't overly inspiring last year.
Well, she's just one of these mares. She's fallen between 2 stools, hasn't she? She's been banging her head against Honeysuckle and these sort of top class mares and making little impression in these sort of small field races. I would think chasing probably be the making of her. She's got plenty of size. If she can jump fluently, she should win, really. I didn't have a strong opinion betting wise, and it's a good race to watch. There's some interesting runners. I think has Gordon got one in there? Down number 5, is it? I can't pronounce.
Maker,
yeah, that's an interesting run. I'm disappointed final run last season, but some of her form earlier in the season was pretty strong. So it'd be interesting to see what the market makes of her. I mean, certainly in terms of stable form, Elliott's going better than Willie at the moment, I think. So a fascinating race to watch. Again, I don't think it's a betting race.
Probably won't be a betting race. No, I'd imagine Brandy Love will probably be odds on, and I'd have a few question marks about her, to be honest, especially in what's likely to be very, very testing ground in Gowran. Like she'd really want to take to the fences to do it, and it's not the worst race in the world. But look, if she's back anywhere,
2 miles as well. She's been running over 2.5, hasn't she? I was wondering about 2 miles for her, but I would imagine they'll be fairly positive. I mean, they usually front on these chasers first time out if they're worried about the drop in trip, and she has got a lot of class. I mean, she's one of these sort of against Honeysuckle for the last couple of years. You've sort of been looking at her on the bridle, thinking, "Oh, who's that?" But not quite seeing it out over 2.5. So maybe 2 will be ideal now chasing.
Yeah, look, we'll move away from Gowran. It's kind of a tough day there. A lot of maiden hurls, beginners chases. Probably not the biggest betting meeting. We'll go over to Wincanton to the UK. Good days racing there. I suppose we'll start with the Rising Stars Novice Chase Grade 2 contest over 2 miles 4. Nappers Hill is very, very fancied here for the Nichols stable. 4 to 6 at the moment with William Hill. Do you fancy him?
I couldn't back him at 6 to 4 on. I mean, he was a 7-time hurdle winner from 13 starts. Paul Nicholls wins every race at Wincanton, it feels like. So he's very much on home territory. I thought he was a bit disappointing at Chepstow behind Unexpected Party. I know Unexpected Party got a very good ride from Harry Skelton, made all the running, and sort of Chepstow's one of those tracks where it's very undulating and they can get away if they front. And Nappers Hill never really landed a blow. Finished with a bit of running left. Obviously, will strip fitter for that run. That was over 2 mile 3. This is 2 mile 4 that should suit. I'm not totally convinced I'd have thought Wincanton might be sharp enough for Napas Hill. I mean, I'm surprised at the disparity of the prices. I mean, I thought Captain Combi at 4-1 was one of the better bets of the weekend. I watched him win at Killarney, where a few things went wrong. He made a couple of mistakes, but he was very strong at the finish there over 2-mile 1. And last time out at Tipperary, he had absolutely no chance with Sharjah. And I don't think he was seen to best effect. He made a bit of a mistake at the 4th and lost ground with the rider not doing a lot a mile out. And Sharjah had basically got the race won from halfway. But I don't think Captain Combi shaped at all badly. He's race fit. He's had a couple of runs. He's sort of 4-1. He'll probably be bigger on the exchange. I think the price difference is miles too big in terms of form between him and Napas Hill.
Yeah, I thought Captain Combi was interesting as well, travelling over from the Dusty Sheehy yard. He won his beginners very, very well in Clarny, like you mentioned. He beat Great Bear that day. It was a pretty good yardstick. He's not a bad horse at all. Sharjah race, look, you can't read too much into that. Nappers Hill, I'm not sure would I trust him too much either. Look, he was a better horse than Captain Combi over hurdles, but interesting reading the trainer's quotes after Captain Combi won in Killarney. I think Keith Donoghue said this fella could have a bright future over fences. So I'm sure, look, they're not going to be travelling over for nothing, and 4-1 probably seems a lot more attractive.
I'll tell you another thing about these two horses. Napas Hill, I think he wants good ground. I mean, he's won on soft ground, but he won at Sandown on soft ground, which is bad. But he was absolutely all out drunk up the hill, and I don't think it suited him. All of his hurdling wins. I mean, he finished tailed off on soft ground at Sandown in the early days, but his wins have been on good to firm. He was well beaten on soft at Cheltenham. Then he's been a winner on good ground twice since as well. I don't think he wants desperate ground. There's rain forecast on Saturday at Wincanton. I think it could tip it in the Irish horse's favour rather than Napas Hill. I mean, I respect Napas Hill. He's scopy. He's probably going to want 3 miles in time. He's got potential. And he did run perfectly well on the figures the other day. But I think the Irish horse might just be able to beat him if this becomes a real slog.
Yeah, I hope you're right. But I always find it very hard to go against Paul Nicholls on these kind of Saturdays. He can just kind of mop up all the races, can't he? And
it is ridiculous. Yeah, we talked about this last year, didn't we? I mean, every Saturday comes around, he runs the whole stables out, and he tends to have 6 winners. He gets them up for these, particularly at Wincanton. There's almost a sign. I mean, you were saying about Willie not running at Down Royal, a place like that. Paul Nicholls sort of almost bars, Henderson and Skelton and all that barely have a runner at Wincanton. They just let him get on with it, and I think it's just not one of their tracks.
Yeah, and he's got the top 2 in the market in the next as well. The Badger Beer Chase, 3-mile 1. Fodon bidding for a repeat of last year's success. 300-2.5 is up there as well. Who caught your eye on this one?
Well, I think both the Nicholls horses are vulnerable. I mean, Frodon's old enough to smoke now. He's got 12 stone to lump, and with Bryony, I think, is a brilliant jockey. That's probably nearly 1.5 stones worth of lead in the saddle, because she won't weigh more than 10 stone 4. I wouldn't have thought. So Frodon, it's a massive ask at the age of 11. I mean, he's a brilliantly tough front-running battler, but he's 7-2 in the early list. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was a double-figure price by the time they jump off. Obviously, 3 under through 5 is very well handicapped. The one I like here is the Big Breakaway, who has got more letters than numbers in his form, and he's a very, very frustrating horse, but he's extremely well treated. I was actually amazed. Sometimes with horses, you think he must be nearly 11 or 10. He's actually only 8, but he ran most of last season at a time when Joe Tizard was quiet, and this time around, they're 5 from 23 in the last fortnight. They've all been absolutely flying, and I think Fresh could be just the time to catch the Big Breakaway. He's got lots of really top-class handicap form in the past. They've tried him in listed and graded races, and he's often shaped better than the Bear Result. He's just one of those horses. He tends to make a mistake as he's moving into it, and then doesn't find as much off the bridle as you thought he was going to. But he's well treated, he's fit, he's fresh. I'd have thought they'd have laid him out for this race. 8-1. Brendan Powell booked a really good young jockey going places. I think he's the one side. I could almost make him favourite over the Nicholls too, and I wouldn't be totally surprised if he didn't end up favourite.
Yeah, he was kind of the first one that caught my eye. Is that he's just the horse. I don't think we've actually, he is an 8-year-old, but he's just kind of been frustrating. I don't think we've really seen the best of him so far, which is kind of a strange thing to say, given.
That's right. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. He won his only point. He won 2 from 4 over hurdles, and he looked like he was going to be a proper graded horse. he's somehow run 12 times over fences and only won once. And I was amazed by that, because you do sort of think back, looking back, he must have won more than one race over fences, because it feels like he's sort of been running every Saturday for the last 3 or 4 years. But he's well treated. I think this race will be run to suit him. They're going to go right gallop, and he does stay particularly well. And the yard's going well. There's lots in his favour. As I say, 7 or 8 to 1. I think it's a fair price.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, but I do give 325 a good chance as well. Like you were saying, he
Yeah,
is well treated, and if they go a strong gallop, which I'm sure Frodon will probably try to ensure, like this fella stays fierce well. Yeah,
yeah,
look, but I don't have a massively strong opinion. I'd put it between those two as well, though. I can't see Frodon doing it. He's just getting on a bit now, but I kind of say that about him every year, and he seems to he seems to keep doing it anyway. So
yeah. And
I
actually,
wouldn't.
Bryony rides him absolutely brilliant. She knows, and she sees a stride every single fence on him. But he is getting old now, and I mean, it's some ask on a 12 stone first time out. I mean, as I say, these markets are so illiquid, and they're not being tested by punters. Frodon's 7 to 2. If he was 10 to 1, I wouldn't blink.
Yeah, she just gets on so well with him. She kind of lets him do his own thing, and they enjoy all their races anyway. So look, to be good to see him run well, but I can't see him doing it again. 12 stone, rising 12 years of age as well. So it's going to be a tough ask. But we'll move on to the last in Wincanton then that we'll look at. It's the Elite Hurdle Grade 2 contest over 2 miles. Nichols looks to have another one in what could be a big day for him. Rubo, I was kind of surprised he stayed over hurdles this year, to be honest. But I suppose when you think about it, there isn't a whole pile behind Constitution Hill in the 2 mile division in the UK, so he could probably mop up a nice bit of prize money there anyway.
Yeah.
He's 5 to 6 on. Would you trust him at that price?
Well, I think there's one thing to say here. West Balboa, who's going to run at Aintree, so this will end up being a 4-runner race. Sacre is a front-running chaser. Could be a spoiler for Rhubarb, but not the grade. Can't possibly win. And the bottom one, Glorious Zoff's outclassed. So it looks a straight match. Rhubarb was very impressive at Kempton. Made all, jumped well, travelled well. He's open to more improvement. He's 5 from 8 over hurdles. I suppose if it got very testing ground, he ran okay on soft at Kempton when he got beat as a novice. It's been good or good to soft only for all his wins. It was good ground at Kempton. Nichols, I think he's had 8 winners in the last 14 days. They're going perfectly well. Hansard looks the only other runner, as the market suggests. Gary Moore, 2 from 34 in the last 14 days, which is not a wonderful stat. Botox has won one of the big races, scrambled home there. So perhaps they're not 100%. I don't think the ground will be any issue for Hansard, but I think he's got quite a bit to find on form with Rhubarb. Again, I suspect Rhubarb will be nearer to 1 to 2 than 5 to 6. 5 to 6 seems a pretty fair price to me.
Yeah, I suppose the ground is the only kind of question mark. He's not really
Yeah,
proven on very testing ground, but probably looks a fairly straightforward contest for him. Apart from that, like you said, he has form over Hansard in the past, and the rest of them look a bit out of it, really.
definitely.
So look, it's not probably not much of a betting race unless you like those short price favourites. But we'll move on to Aintree anyway for the last race we mentioned on Saturday, the Grand Sefton over the national fences. It's a tough race, I suppose. Not a massive field for a Grand Sefton. I think they've moved the time of the race, which maybe might attribute to that a bit. It's early in the season, I suppose, for these staying handicap chasers. Couple in there with fair chances. Anything standing out to you?
Well, there's been plenty of money. The only one who's really attracted money is Jess Kill, who's an unknown quantity. He's been winning in France for the Greenalls. Excellent stable, Oliver Greenall. 4 winners in the last 14 days. They're all flying. Jess Kill's completely unexposed. Wouldn't mind any more rain. I would imagine it's going to be heavy ground. They've survived one inspection there already, and it's still raining there today, apparently, although the forecast is good for Saturday. So that's an interesting one. The one I liked, another Irish raider, Paul John Gilligan's Born by the Sea, who's a 9-year-old. He's only won 2 of his 24 starts over fences, but he handles deep ground really well. And I actually thought he ran a blinder in the Grand National last year behind Korak Rambler. He ended up finishing 6th there of the 39 runners, but he ran really well, really. Never quite landing a blow, but up on the hammer throughout at a big price. I think he was 50 to 1 that day, but he's jumped these fences, which I like that round Aintree. I think if you've done it there once, you tend to be able to do it again. He's race fit. He's had a few runs already this season in Ireland. I think he's bound to run well at 8 to 1, but I do think these races are a bit of a minefield, Emma. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, Born by the Sea kind of stood out as well for Paul Gilligan. I don't think he'd be travelling over from Ireland for no reason, and he did. He ran a massive race in the Grand National. I'm just wondering, would this be a little bit sharp for him? I'm not 100% sure, but if the ground gets testing, it might draw him into it. But yeah,
Yeah.
Jeskeel favourite obviously, but looks like maybe very very hard to beat. I think he was second in this last year. Went on to finish
Right.
second in the Beechers as well. So he's plenty of experience over the fences, and like you said, won a listed contest in Orteal not too long ago. So he's race fit as well. But I wouldn't be having much of a bet in it now, like you were saying, like over the national fences. Although it's not a massive field, it can be a little bit unpredictable. So I have a
Fantastic Lady's interesting. The Henderson, or she that one ran really well over course and distance behind Bill Baxter in April, and that was on pretty testing ground. And she's a mare. She's open to a bit more improvement. She's a bit more lightly raced than some of them. She only ran 9 times over fences, so she could have a bit more to offer. She's got Nico on, which I have a bit of an aversion to backing anything ridden by him, but at least it's around about 6-1 rather than 4-6. So there is some of the risk removed. But yeah, she should run well as well. But again, I think it's a very difficult Saturday handicap.
not a big Nico fan.
I'm not wild on him. I mean, he won. We were going to talk. I thought he was very good on a horse, Will Mount, that won at Newbury in the week. That really did look top class. Very impressive. Jumping well in a race that Henderson's milked over the years. He's perfectly good on the absolute certainties, Nico, when he gets an uncontested lead. It's just when you need any sort of judgment of pace from off the pace in these handicaps. He doesn't get many outside rides, I think is probably the politest way of putting it.
Yeah, it was interesting. Will Mountain was very, very impressive yesterday, wasn't he? And the big money point to point or disappointed big time in the bumper. Did you see that one, Histronic?
Yeah. That was disappointing. That became very attritional, didn't it? It had rained at Newbury halfway through the day, and it was pretty desperate by the last race. And I think he probably blew up, and he might have ended up marooned on the wrong side of the track. So I'd probably give him another chance. I'll tell you another horse who I really liked in the week, just gone, Johnny Who of John Joe's, who's absolutely flying at the minute. John Joe, he looked a really nice horse at Carlisle. Didn't come off the bridle in bad ground, and it was a proper run race that. And he's a name to put in everyone's trackers.
Yeah, he was very impressive. There's been a few in the UK over the last few days or weeks. Aroko as well, another one I suppose, very, very
Oh,
eye-catching.
yeah,
The Irish
ultra.
horses probably haven't gotten going as well as the UK, so maybe that
Yeah,
might be a sign sign of
no,
things to
that's
come.
true. And at this time of year, we talked about it when we've been discussing the race. I think there's 4 yards at the minute in the UK are absolutely flying. Venetia Williams suddenly has gone bang in the last week. She had a treble, I think it was on Thursday. They're flying now. They're all going to win. They'll win relentlessly now for the next couple of months. Kim Bailey has got some fantastic young horses. They're all flying. Joe Tizard, we've already touched on. And John Joe, unusually, because he can take a long time to get going, but their horses seem really well forward at the minute. And certainly those 4 yards in comparison to someone like Dan Skelton, he's had 6 winners in the last 14 days. They're not running badly, but I think his strike rate's around 10%, which would be probably around half what you'd expect. So some of the bigger yards, perhaps a little bit slower to get going.
Yeah, it's something I suppose to note coming into the weekend. The yard form is always important, but we'll move on now. I suppose the last few races we're kind of running short in time here now, but we look at a few from Naas. The 2 o'clock Brown Lad handicap hurdle, 2 mile tree. Did you have any fancy in this?
I thought firm footing was the form choice. Again, you're guessing a bit. Should be fit. Ran 16 days ago. Some of the rivals at the front of the market probably haven't had a run. I think he's bound to go well. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any prices yet, but I thought he was just about favourite on form.
Yeah, look, the kind of one that stood out for me, Rebel Gold. I think he's very interesting for the Pat Foley team. Like you were saying, we've no prizes at the moment, so it's kind of hard it's kind of hard to pick out. Maybe, but I think this fella might be trade prices. Like he's rated £25 low over hurdles than he is over fences. He's a 10-year-old, but like you think he might have something up his sleeve when you think about that. He was very very good winning a graded race over fences last time we saw him. Now that was last February. So he probably has had a few issues, and whether he'll be fully round up for this now, I'm not 100% sure. But he ran well in sixth in this race last year. The race probably got away from him a bit. Rachel won a shoe and Daphne Funt and Watch House Cross. and just made up every post the winning post. But look, if he's fairly ready for this now, he could take a bit of beating. And another one I just want to give a quick mention to is Drop the Anchor. I just think he has another big day in him. Look, the last time he won was in the November handicap here in 2022, I think it was. Has been having pretty quiet runs over hurdles, but he's got a good claimer on board here, Naden Kelly from the Peter Fahey yard. Look, if he's on form on the day, I think he probably still could have a big handicap in him. But again, like it's a tough one, and with no prices, so it's quite hard to really make a strong opinion on it. So we'll move on to a grade 3 chase now, the Barberstown Castle steeplechase, the 235. Thought this was a very interesting one. Sir Gerhard horse, look, he's just probably triplets over our fences last year, wasn't he? He ran at everything up from 2 miles to 3 miles. There was actually a very good quote from Jamie Codd, I think, in a Cheltenham preview, saying he wouldn't get 3 miles in a horse box, but will he give him a go at it anyway?
And he
He's
was
back
right.
to
Yeah.
he's back to 2 miles here. Is that his trip, do you think?
I think it's sort of a shot in the dark. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't need the run as well. I thought Phil Dorr was really interesting here, back at 2 miles. Now, that one's another one. It bumped into Vauban. Do you remember in the Triumph Hurdle? I think every schneid was on Phil Dorr each way, and it ran a blinder in last year, the year before last Triumph Hurdle. And I thought he took to chasing pretty well. He's back at 2 miles, which whenever he runs over 2 miles, he looks like he needs 2.5. And when he runs over 2.5, he looks like he needs 2. But he's still open to more improvement in the yards flying. He's only run 3 times over fences. I like Phil Dorr because I think he's a bit more of a reliable model than Sir Gerhard. Dino Blue must be a big runner as well. Willie Mullin's second string, presumably on jockey bookings, but he's 3 from 6 over fences. He is a 2 miler and he likes deep ground, and he progressed nicely last season. So again, it's Gordon against Willie. I mean, the market will be fascinating here.
Yeah, it's a tough one again. I kind of agree on Dino Blue. I just think she's a lot more reliable than like Sir Gerhard. Fitness now will be the question. I think Willies are just kind of getting rolling at the moment. But like you were saying, I'd say Sir Gerhard isn't the hardest horse to get fit. We didn't see him until after Christmas last year. But yeah, he's just not one I can really trust. Like his jumping isn't bad, but I just feel like he could walk through a fence. And I think we had an upset in this last year. Was a Gentleman to Me was beaten by Jeremy's Flame. So I think the mare could get the better here again. She gets a bit of weight from him. Phil Dorr, look, very good horse. Beat Charge obviously over hurdles last year. I just think Dino Blue is just probably the most reliable in the field. Panda Boy is a good horse as well. I thought he was a little bit eye-catching behind Maletta Endo in Punchestown, but this is going to be way too sharp for him. I'd say he's one to follow down the line. I just want to give a quick mention then in the 310. Corbett's Cross is making his long-awaited reappearance over fences. It's been long-awaited by me, and I'm a big fan of him. I'm kind of getting kind of contrasting views on this horse. Some people don't trust him after running out in Cheltenham. What's your opinion on him?
I think I wouldn't hold that against him at Cheltenham. I think that was just one of those things. He's very progressive before then, wasn't he? Of course, he's only been with Emmett Mullins for, I think, a couple of runs before Cheltenham. He looks like a chaser. The only thing I'd be cautious of is Emmett Mullins has barely had a runner. He's only had one in the last 14 days, and it didn't do a lot. So the market, let alone the fact that JP McManus owns him now, the market will be a fascinating guy. But I think he's one of those horses, Emma, isn't he? He's in everybody's 10 to follow list this season.
Yeah, I really, really like him. Like when he was with Eugene, even just when Emmett was after buying him, you would put him down as kind of a real just dour stare. And then he went out and he beat Founder 50 in that 2 mile graded hurdle, and he kind of proved everyone wrong. I thought the run in Cheltenham, look, I wouldn't hold anything against him. I think the way he ran, he actually got quite lit up during the race. Maybe that was an effect of running over 2 miles before. He wasn't going to win when he ran out, I'd say, but he was running a big race. So I think, look, he'll be right up there in the novice hurdle division. Whether it'll be over 2.5 or over 3 miles, he's probably good enough to do it either. But this isn't the easiest starting point for him, obviously. Grange Clare West was a good horse, probably didn't live up to his bidding last year, and we did a stable tour with Willie a couple of weeks ago, and he didn't really sound overly enthusiastic about this fella. Hart Wood then for the Bromhead team hasn't been seen in a long time, so you'd imagine if Corbett's Cross is at his best, he should be winning this. But look, we'll wrap it up there. Stephen, what would be your nap of the weekend?
I like Captain Combi at Wincanton in the 150. I think it's a match between the front two, and I think there's much too much difference, 4-6 and 4-1. I think Captain Combi's got the experience and is battle hardened, and will definitely like the ground, which I think could easily be edging towards heavy, whereas the favourite is unproven on really bad ground.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Solomon Lane in Down Royal on Saturday. Look, he'll be a big price, but I think he should definitely be in the placings at the very least. He's probably a horse he's an 8-year old, but I think the trainer thought a bit about him as a young horse, and I just think he might still have a bit more. He might be a bit better than his rating suggests, let's say. So, look, thanks very much, Stephen, for your input.
Brilliant.
We hope we found a few winners in there. If you're having a bet this weekend, make sure to gamble responsibly, and if you enjoyed the show, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel.